Is it possible we finally gotten some honesty? I'd love it if it's true. We are so used to the dishonest so often and in every way. We get it in our politics. We get it in our culture. It's like watching social media and actually believing that these people are successful just because they flash the car or they flash a couple of bucks. There's no knowing. It sets a really ugly kind of thought in the brain that somehow that's what you are meant to achieve, and if you don't achieve that, you're not actually a success. It's ugly stuff. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. 833-468-8669. 833-GOT-TONY. That's the number. That's how you get to be a part of the show. And I was reminded of it in listening to this clip over at MSNBC with Mika Brzezinski, the Joe Scarborough lover, and lover, and Ken Burns, the documentarian, who they've decided can be on MSNBC as long as he's talking smack about Trump and loving on Harris.
There's no real choice this November. Why?
I just agree for all of the reasons you pointed out and the disturbing clip that you started this segment with. You know, migrants commit far less crimes than regular citizens. Our cities have never been safer. The economy is booming. We have a robust sort of intelligence and foreign policy apparatus of both parties, all of whom are supporting Kamala Harris.
Can we just stop? Doesn't matter if you have people who are allegedly Republicans, part of the intelligence apparatus, supporting Kamala Harris? Of course not. Of course not. I've got Democratic mayors supporting Trump. What is the argument? People make all sorts of decisions, some good, some bad. The economy is booming, Ken Burns. The economy is not booming. Southwest Airlines telling employees, get ready for a bumpy ride. The hope that we have a soft landing as opposed to what could be a recession. You have got company after company engaging in downsizing. Meanwhile, we still pay more for milk and eggs and bread, etc. The economy is booming. Tell that to the $1.14 trillion worth of credit card debt. Who would say that the economy is booming? Why would you say it? No honest person talks this way. Our cities have never been safer. Now, there is a lot of back and forth about the data that is given to the FBI to be able to look at crime statistics. And is it that some large cities are not giving up all of their statistics and therefore skewing the data to show that there is less crime as a political move? Well, there are some people who say yes, and then there's some people who say, no, here it is, and here's what we got from LA, and here's what we got from New Orleans, et cetera, et cetera. The issue is, if you had 210 murders in 2022, and you had 198 murders in 2023, and you're shouting, hooray, chances are you're a moron. Nope, I apologize. Chances are they're a moron. You are pretty perfect. This is what they're celebrating. They're celebrating not being over 200. Isn't that super neato keen? No, that sucks. Let's say that it sucks and let's discuss issues. Why is this happening? And it's not the gun. It is the people who feel driven to go about committing murders because they have no other way of dealing with the issues around them or about them. This would be Kamala Harris getting to root causes. This is Tony getting to actual root causes here of why people are killing people. Because there's a social aspect to the idea that you aren't allowed to do me wrong and I'm going to get back at you and everybody's going to know I'm a tough guy. Dear Lord. This is how it gets done? This is culturally how it gets done? Culturally how maybe it's glorified? Now, that would be an honest conversation from Ken Burns. We don't get that. We get our cities have never been safer. Tell that to Jews walking down the street in New York and get punched in the face. Oh, hell, tell that to women walking down the street in New York and getting punched in the face. I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny. But, I mean, it doesn't take much to see the issues. You think Chicago is safer than ever, do you? You know who doesn't think so? The people who live in Chicago. Or the people who used to live in Chicago and have moved out because you can't live there no more. Tell that to the people of San Francisco who leave their trunks open overnight so they don't get broken into. And then the car gets broken into anyway. Tell them. It's not real. It's dishonest. If murders go from 210 to 198, good. But it isn't good enough, and it isn't something to celebrate. Well, we take the victories where we can. It doesn't make anybody safe. It's not safe. If we're not going to be honest about the thing, we can't do anything about the thing. And I forget the other one. I forget what the other one was. He talked about, my favorite, maybe, that migrants engage in less crime than American citizens. Let's use a number, shall we? And we always talk about, we're not talking about people here legally. Let's talk about illegally. 11 million. We've got 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States. If there are 330 million people in the U.S., and we consider those Americans, and we've got 11 million here illegally, so what is that? So 33 million would be 10%. So let's just call it 3%. Let's just call it 3% of the nation. You mean 3% of the people in a landmass aren't engaged in as much criminal activity as the other 97%? I, for one, am shocked. The question is, do we have an immigration policy that makes sense? And why are some of these people in the country? Laken Riley didn't deserve to die. Isn't that an argument enough for the fact that any crime being committed by somebody here illegally is de facto a serious issue? Shouldn't we address that as a nation? No. Ken Burns would rather lie his you-know-what off to you in pushing that forward. Now, you're like, Tony, interesting way to start the day. But why is this all about Ken Burns? Well, Ken Burns is engaged in a totally transactional relationship with MSNBC. There's no choice. You have to vote for Kamala. Okay, fine. Well, of course, that's what he says. That's how he gets invited back. Honesty is a rare commodity. And sometimes when you hear it, you are so shocked that it was actually uttered. You're almost thrilled. And sometimes you hear it and you say, why now? This was Joe Biden speaking at the United Nations, the General Assembly. He did not look great. And as we know, we don't have anybody running the country right now. We don't. That's obvious. But he was talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the hard decision that was made. And then, to my surprise and shock, and I'm going to leave it to you, he brings up the 13 service members killed. I couldn't believe my ears.
When I came to office as president, Afghanistan had replaced Vietnam as America's longest war. I was determined to end it, and I did. It was a hard decision, but the right decision. 4 American presidents had faced that decision, but I was determined not to leave it to the 5th. It was a decision accompanied by tragedy. 13 brave Americans lost their lives, along with hundreds of Afghans in a suicide bomb. I think those lost lives. I think them every day. I think of all the 2,461 U.S. military deaths over a long 20 years of that war. 20,744 American servicemen wounded in action. I think of their service, their sacrifice, and their heroism. I know other countries lost their own men and women fighting alongside us. We honor their sacrifices as well.
I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I couldn't believe that he actually said it. The same guy who was looking at his watch when the bodies returned, the same guy who was on the debate stage, said that we never, ever have lost a life in the military since I've been president, which was a lie. And now he takes to the stage at the United Nations to say, I think of them every day. I don't. My natural want is not to be cynical, if only because I'm bad at it. My natural want is to hear what people say and believe them. That want is admirable in theory, but sometimes problematic in reality. And I know you get what I'm saying there. You've been there yourself. You might be in that place yourself right now. I desperately want to say, good on him. The only thing I can say is, it's about time. And then after that, it's, why is it about time? Why now? Why this moment? Why this place? After so many opportunities to discuss, engage, remember, give thanks, memorialize this moment, this place, what am I missing? What am I missing? Why can't I just see somebody honestly discussing the loss of 13 and say, good? Maybe it's because it's not actually an honest discussing. Maybe it's a remembering, to which I'm still stunned and shocked. But it's not in our plans to withdraw from Afghanistan, we cost 13 American service members their lives through failure that we must remember and repair and never allow to happen again. Maybe he's discussing it as he is discussing doing the right thing. Withdrawing from Afghanistan was the hard thing and the right thing, and I wasn't going to leave it to a fifth president. I did it myself. Look how tough I am. And then I took on Corn Pop, and I said, put up your dukes and 23 skidoo, and whatever it is that you say from the 1870s. I don't know how old the man is. Maybe it's because it was not honest. And maybe that's the part that kind of struck me. He finally brings up these 13 dead service members, dead at his incompetence, at Antony Blinken's incompetence, at Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary's incompetence. Defense and state did not confer, did not speak to each other, did not establish a game plan. They did not know what the other one was doing as they were engaged in this withdrawal that was military and, of course, a diplomatic withdrawal. You bring up these 13 as a sign of how tough you are, that you did what had to be done and lives were lost. And here I want to try and give him props. He doesn't mention it when it needs to be mentioned, and when he does, it's gratuitous. Ugly stuff. But standard for Joe Biden based on his whole career. We have watched the dishonesty. We have been victims of the dishonesty. And we are aware that the dishonesty is not going away. Yet every now and again, you are presented with something kind of honest. Like Democrats taking a look at polling and saying, this does not compute. I've got that story coming up. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today.